Good morning, fourth graders. Today in math, we're going to continue reviewing multiplying fractions. So I only have one page for you to work on today. The left half of the page has you skip counting or writing the multiples of each fraction, and on the right side of the page, you're actually multiplying a fraction by a whole number. So let's go over two examples, and then you can pause the video and try the rest on your own before you come back to check your answers. All right, question number 1 asks us to skip count or list the next 4 multiples of the fraction 2/5. So if I were to double 2/5, so having 2/5 plus 2/5, my next multiple would be 4/5. So that's sort of like saying the first one is 2/5 times 1, and then we have 2/5 times 2. And then if I were to triple it, or add 4/5 again, I would have 6/5, and then I would have 8/5, and then I would have 10/5. So each time I'm adding 2 more fifths to the fraction I had before. So if you look at my numerators or my top numbers, it's just like I'm skip counting by 2. I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And my denominator stays the same all the way across. If you wanted to challenge yourself on the fractions 6/5, 8/5, and 10/5, you are probably noticing that those are improper fractions because the top number is larger than the bottom number. So if you wanted to go one step farther, you could challenge yourself and you could rewrite those fractions as mixed numbers. So for example, 6/5 is the same as 1 and 1/5. 8/5 is the same as 1 and 3/5. And 10/5 is the same as the whole number 2. This is what you're going to be doing for questions 2 through 4, just skip counting or listing the multiples of each fraction. On the opposite side, let's take a look at question number 5. There are a couple of strategies we could use to solve this problem, 3 times 2/5. Last week, the strategy that we were using is we were repeatedly adding our fraction the number of times that our whole number told us. So we would have gone 2/5 plus 2/5 plus 2/5, and we would have gotten the answer of 6/5 or 1 whole and 1/5. If you'd like to stick with that strategy, that is perfectly fine. That strategy works really well every time that you use it. I'm going to show you a second strategy today that you're welcome to try if you want to. Instead of repeatedly adding my fractions together, what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to show you how to multiply a whole number by a fraction just by multiplying. So first of all, if we look at our whole number of 3, we could write the whole number 3 as a fraction by putting it over a denominator of 1. So 3 over 1 is the same thing as saying just 3. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to multiply this fraction of 3 over 1 times my fraction of 2/5. I already know that my correct answer should be 6 over 5. So if you're looking at my multiplication problem that I've created over here, in order to multiply two fractions together, all you need to do is multiply across. So I'm going to multiply my numerators together. 3 times 2 equals 6. And this is where multiplying is a little bit different than adding and subtracting. In multiplying, you'll see that I have 2 different denominators here, and that is okay. I can still multiply 1 times 5 across, and I'll get the same answer. So be careful. When you're adding and subtracting, you need to have the same denominator because your denominator doesn't change. But when you're multiplying, it does not matter if your denominators are different. You just multiply across. So you can choose to use either strategy. The first one where we added 2/5 3 times, or the second strategy where we turned our whole number 3 into the fraction of 3 over 1, and then we just multiplied across by multiplying our numerators together and multiplying our denominators together. Both strategy will get you to the same answer. So go ahead, pause the video now, and then come on back and we'll go over the rest of the answers together. All right, let's take a look at question number 2. I'm going to list the next 4 multiples of 2/3. So I'll have 4/3, 6/3, 8/3, and 10/3. Notice my numerators are just skip counting by 2s, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. If you challenged yourself and you rewrote each of these as mixed numbers, you would have gotten 1 1/3, the whole number 2, 2 2/3, and then 3 1/3. Question number 3, we're skip counting by 5/6, listing the next 4 multiples. So I have 10/6, 15/6, 26, and 25/6. My denominator stays the same each time, and I am just skip counting by 5. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. If you chose to write mixed numbers, you would have gotten 1 4/6, 2 3/6, 3 2/6, and 4 1/6. Question number 4, we're skip counting by 3/4, so I would have 6/4, 9/4, 12/4, and 15/4. Again, if you did mixed numbers, you would have gotten 1 2/4 or 1 1/2, 2 1/4, the whole number 3, and then 3 3/4. All right, we've already answered question number 5. Let's take a look at number 6. For number 6, you could have either done 1/3 plus 1/3, and you would have gotten the fraction of 2/3. Or if you tried the multiplication strategy, you would have done 2/1 times 1/3. Multiply your numerators together to get 2. Multiply your denominators together to get 3. We got 2/3 both ways. Let's look at number 7. If you did repeated addition, you would have gotten 1/2. 1/2 plus itself 5 times equals 5/2, which is the same as saying 2 1/2. Or if you chose to multiply, you would have done 5/1 times 1/2. 5 times 1 is 5. 1 times 2 is 2, which also would have equaled 2 1/2. So again, we got the same answer both ways. Question number 8. I'm going to just stick to my multiplication strategy instead of doing repeated addition. So I'm going to change my 4 into a fraction of 4/1. I'm going to multiply it by my second fraction of 3/4. And I'm going to multiply across. 4 times 3 is 12. And 1 times 4 is 4. And that also equals the whole number of 3. Question number 9. 2/1 times 5/8. I multiply across and I've gotten 10/8, which is the same as 1 and 2/8. And the last problem, I'm going to multiply 6/1 times 2/5. I multiply across to get 12/5, and that is the same as 2 wholes and 2/5. And the very last problem on the bottom says 3 friends are making cupcakes. Each friend wants to add 3/8 of a teaspoon of sprinkles to the cupcakes. They only have 1/8 of a teaspoon to use. How many times? Oh, they only have a 1/8 teaspoon to use. How many times will the friends need to use the 1/8 teaspoon for everyone to add their sprinkles? So here we have 3 friends. Each of them wants to use 3/8 of a teaspoon of sprinkles. So the first friend is going to need to use the 1/8 teaspoon 3 times. So this is like little measuring spoon 3 times. This one's going to need, and this one will need to use it 3 times. So for in all, they will need to use the 1/8 teaspoon 9 times. All right. And that is where we'll stop for today. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and I will see you again tomorrow.